I just wanted to check if the dog was fed on time. But the kitchen cam showed my husband standing in the kitchen I paid off for 15 years, hands behind his back, smiling at a strange woman. He showed her every cabinet, every drawer where I keep my things. Then I heard him say, "We'll tear this out when we sell the house." He thinks I'm not watching. He forgot I work for a strategy firm. My name is Alice Lawson. I am 41 years old. I was born in Ohio, but I have lived in Willowford, Vermont, for nearly 2 decades. I am, by nature, an observer. It is my job. People pay me to watch their organizations, find the inefficiencies, and tell them where to cut. I am precise, I am thorough, and I am rarely surprised. The hotel room in Denver was beige. Everything was beige. The carpet, the walls, the heavy curtains drawn against the bright, thin mountain air. I was here for a conference, a working vacation, blended with a college tour for my daughter, Riley. She was 19, currently off exploring the campus, enjoying the separation from Vermont. My husband, Evan Ross, 45, was back home. He was supposed to be holding down the fort, checking on our dog, maybe grilling something for our son, Caleb, who was driving over from his apartment for dinner. A normal Tuesday. I opened the security app purely out of habit. We got it for the dog, Bruno, a nervous golden retriever who hated thunderstorms. I usually checked it around noon, just to see him sleeping by the patio door. The timeline was empty, just clips of Bruno sniffing the counter. But then I saw it. An alert from 12:04 p.m., motion detected kitchen. Evan was supposed to be at the office. Caleb wouldn't be there for hours. My finger hovered. It was probably just Bruno jumping, triggering the sensor. I tapped the file. The video loaded, buffering for a second on the hotel's weak Wi-Fi. Then, my kitchen materialized. It was my kitchen, the one I designed. The soapstone counters I'd argued for. The deep green cabinets I'd painted myself one summer. The kitchen I had been paying the mortgage on for 15 years. Evan was standing by the island. He was wearing his client polo shirt, the expensive one. He was not alone. A woman stood opposite him. She was elegant, perhaps 10 years younger than me, dressed in a sharp linen blazer. She looked expensive. Her name, I would soon learn, was Sabrina Cole. Evan was smiling. It wasn't his real smile. It was the one he used at Creststone Financial. The, "let me show you the benefits" smile. He gestured to the pantry. He opened the spice drawer, the one I organized alphabetically. He was giving a tour. I turned the volume up on my phone, the tinny sound filling the beige silence. "And the storage here is just fantastic," Sabrina said. Her voice was smooth. "We'll tear this out when we sell the house." Evan replied. The words didn't compute. Sell the house. I tapped the 15-second rewind. I heard it again. I watched, my blood turning to ice water. He moved to the narrow drawer next to the oven. My stomach clenched. No, that was not part of the tour. That was mine. He pulled it open. "This is just storage," he said, waving his hand dismissively. I knew what was in that drawer. My mother's recipe cards, stained with oil. The blue ink faded. Her handwriting, the lemon pie recipe she taught me before she passed away in our guest room, in this house. Sabrina leaned in. "What's that?" "Oh, just stuff," Evan said. His voice was casual, breezy. "Alice will take this later. This space is all yours. This space is all yours." He was giving away my mother's ghost. He was erasing me from the cabinets. Sabrina drifted toward the window, looking out over the backyard. "Do Caleb and Riley come back often?" she asked, casually, like she had the right to ask about my children. Evan chuckled, that slick, practiced chuckle. "Just holidays, really. They're grown. They'll understand when we move to Westbridge Estates. It's a much better layout for everyone." Westbridge Estates. The name meant nothing to me. A fictional place. A lie. He wasn't just selling our house. He was liquidating our life to fund a new one. I watched the clip until the end. They left the kitchen. The motion sensor shut off. The screen went black. I didn't move. The beige room felt like a tomb. I went back to the timeline. I played it again and again. The fourth time. I used my fingers to zoom. I zoomed in on Evan as Sabrina looked at the backyard. He pulled his phone from his pocket. He typed quickly, his thumb flashing across the screen. He held it up slightly, as if checking the reception, before sliding it back. I paused the video. I zoomed in on the phone screen. The pixels blurred, but the words were clear enough. A message to her. Our house is beautiful, isn't it? Our house. I sat on the edge of the hotel bed. The air conditioning clicked on. A synthetic hum. I did not cry. Crying is inefficient. It's a waste of energy. And I am a strategic consultant. I know what to do when a system is compromised. I opened my laptop. I connected to the hotel Wi-Fi, ignoring the unsecured network warning. I logged into the camera app on my desktop. Download clip, 12:04 p.m. to 12:19 p.m. I created a new, encrypted folder on an external drive. I labeled the folder Northline Q4 Projections. I opened a fresh document, date October 22nd, time 12:04 p.m., event motion detected, kitchen, persons present, Evan Ross, Sabrina Cole. Unknown affiliation. I transcribed their dialogue, every word. We'll tear this out when we sell the house. Alice will take this later. This space is all yours. Westbridge Estates. I screenshotted the zoomed-in text message. I saved it as a JPEG. I attached it to the file. I looked at the file, saved and secure. Riley would be back soon, wanting to get pizza. I would smile. I would ask about her tour. And I would be the picture of a mother on vacation. Evan was a good salesman, but he was a terrible strategist. He never looked at the whole board. He thought the camera was for burglars. He thought it was to protect him. I closed the laptop. He thinks I'm not watching. He forgot I work for a strategy firm. I'll use it to burgle my life back. It started months ago. The groundwork for his new life. It was subtle. Just a few comments dropped over dinner. The way he might mention the weather. Did you see the Zillow estimate on the house this month? Alice, he'd asked, scrolling through his phone, the blue light catching the new, expensive frames of his glasses. The market in Willowford is just, it's insane. We're sitting on a gold mine. I remember nodding, not really listening, trying to get Bruno to stop begging for scraps under the table. That's nice, Evan. Pass the salt. No, I'm serious, he insisted, looking up. People are getting 50, 60,000 over asking, cash offers. It's the lake. Everyone from Boston wants a place near the lake now. We should really think about capitalizing on this. Capitalizing, that word, at Northline Strategic Group. Capitalize is what you do before you restructure, which is what you do before you downsize. It's a predator's word. Dressed up in a suit. I should have paid more attention. But I was busy with an actual restructuring in Chicago, and I assumed it was just Evan being Evan, obsessed with the next financial buzzword. Our marriage hadn't always been built on buzzwords. For 17 years, it was quiet, it was comfortable. We were the classic American middle-class portrait. I was the planner, the one who managed the house, the kids' schedules, the retirement accounts, the mortgage. He was the personality. When we first met, he sold insurance. He had a genuine laugh and an easy charm that made old ladies trust him with their policies. I loved that about him. I loved that he could talk to anyone. Then, about 8 years ago, he moved to Creststone Financial. That's when things began to shift. It wasn't just insurance anymore. It was wealth management and asset allocation. His suits got sharper. The wool blend replaced by tailored silk. He started wearing a watch that cost more than my first car. He started talking about our brand as a family. The real cracks appeared with the promotion. The one that made him a regional vice president. It meant Boston, lots of Boston. Suddenly, he was gone 3 days a week. Building the portfolio, he'd say, kissing me goodbye at 5 a.m. At first, I was proud. Then I was just tired. His Boston trips started aligning, with perfect, terrible precision, with our life. Our 17th anniversary dinner was postponed because of an emergency client meeting. Riley's 21st birthday, a milestone, was celebrated over a patchy FaceTime call because he was stuck at a seminar. He sent a lavish gift, but he wasn't there. The money was good. That was the anesthetic. The money was very good. But it came with its own set of symptoms. I handle our joint finances, the main accounts. But he had his corporate card, his expense account. I'd see the statements when I filed our taxes. Conference advances, client entertainment, expenses from steakhouses in the seaport, places with names like Grill and Prime, with $100 appetizers, restaurants he never, ever suggested when he was home with me. I didn't want steak. I just wanted to know why his client dinners always seemed to be for two. I did ask, once. It was a Sunday morning, and I'd just reconciled the statements. Evan, this charge from Levoot in Boston, $600 on a Tuesday. He didn't even look up from his laptop. It was a client, Alice, a big one. You have to spend money to make money. You know that. It's just a lot. And these advances for conferences, it seems... He'd snapped the laptop shut. The sound was loud in the quiet kitchen. What, Alice, it seems what's suspicious. Do you think I'm making this up? He stood, pacing in front of the counter. I am out there busting my ass to give this family a better life, to get us into a better place. And you're here auditing me over a dinner. I'm sorry. I thought you, of all people, would understand building a future. Overreacting. That was his favorite word for me. You're overreacting, Alice. You're reading too much into it. It was the perfect gaslight. He made my strategic analysis, the very skill I was paid for, sound like neurotic paranoia. So I stopped asking. The kids felt it. Caleb, already 22 and living on his own, just stopped asking if his father would be home. He'd call me instead. Riley, younger and still bearing the brunt of her teenage years, grew quiet. She'd watch her father pack his slick leather weekend bag and just nod. Have a good trip, Dad. I saw the distance growing between them, and I did what I thought I had to do. I protected the image. I was the buffer. Dad's working hard for us, I'd say, the words tasting like ash. His new role is very demanding. I was maintaining the brand. I see it now. Of course, I see it. Sitting in this beige hotel room, the downloaded video file burning a hole in my external drive. He was preparing to get us into a better place, just not with me. That conversation about the market wasn't a passing thought. It was step one. He was planting the seed. He was gauging my reaction, testing how attached I was to the house. He was building his narrative. He needed my signature to sell. And he was preparing the story that would get it, the story about capitalizing all those seminars in Boston, all those client dinners. They weren't just dinners. They were dates. They were the construction of a new life. Sabrina Cole, a woman with, as I would soon discover, 3 children of her own. 3 children who needed a better layout. My children were grown, in his mind. They were already out. He was downsizing his family to upgrade hers, and he was going to use the asset I had spent 15 years paying for to do it. He was going to sit us all down, probably at a big family dinner, maybe Thanksgiving. He would use his confident, reassuring wealth management voice. He would frame it as a smart financial move for us. He would talk about a fresh start, a beautiful new home, Westbridge Estates, and he would expect me to be surprised. He would expect me to maybe cry, to argue, and then, ultimately, to sign, just like I always had. I opened my laptop again and looked at the transcription. Alice will take this later. This space is all yours. He had already moved me out. I won't be surprised at dinner. I won't be the one reacting. This time, I will be the one setting the agenda. Riley came back to the hotel room at 7 p.m., flushed from the cold air, holding a pizza box. She was full of stories about the campus, the mountains, the altitude. I listened. I smiled. I ate a slice of pepperoni pizza that tasted like cardboard and ash. I was the perfect mother. My mind miles away in Burlington, Vermont, already logged into a legal database. That night, after Riley was asleep, I sat in the hard-backed desk chair, the glow of my laptop the only light. The encrypted folder was already uploaded to my private cloud, under a file name so boring it hurt Northline Q4 Projections. The house was in both our names, a joint tenancy. I knew that. But I also knew my husband. Evan Ross was a man who loved the idea of big financial moves, but hated the paperwork. For years, I had been the one putting documents in front of him. Sign here, I'd say. It's the refinancing for the mortgage. Sign here. It's the partnership agreement for that small investment. He never read them. He'd scrawl his flamboyant, illegible signature, hand the pen back, and say, "You're the details person, Alice. Just tell me when it's done." He was biding his time to capitalize. I was biding my time to liquidate him. My fingers flew across the trackpad. I wasn't searching for divorce lawyer. That was too broad, too emotional. I searched Burlington VT Financial Asset Dissolution High Conflict. The results were small, but one name appeared consistently, mentioned in several high-profile Vermont business separations: Alec Whitmore. His tagline wasn't, "I fight for you." It was, "Strategic Resolutions for Complex Portfolios." He was a Northline man, in a different field. His website had a book online feature. I paid $300 on my personal card for an emergency virtual consultation. The earliest slot was 8 a.m. Mountain Time the next morning. At 8:01, my laptop chimed. A video call. A man appeared, sharp, in his late 50s, with a crisp white shirt and a background of law books that looked genuinely read. He didn't smile. "Ms. Lawson, Alec Whitmore, you have 45 minutes. What is the emergency?" I didn't waste time on the preamble. My husband, Evan Ross, is actively planning to sell our primary residence, a joint marital asset, without my consent, for the express purpose of moving in a third party and her children. Alex steepled his fingers. He didn't look surprised. Planning to, or has he listed it? He's planning, he's showing it. He brought the third party into the home yesterday to tour it. He told her which parts of the kitchen she could have. Alex's eyes sharpened. That's a specific allegation. In Vermont, dissipation of marital assets is a serious breach, but you have to prove intent. A court won't act on a suspicion. "I don't have a suspicion," I said. "I have a video from 12:04 p.m. yesterday. I have him, on camera, in my kitchen, with her, telling her, and I quote, 'We'll tear this out when we sell the house.'" Alec Whitmore, for the first time, sat back in his chair. A slow, thin smile crossed his face. "Ms. Lawson, that isn't a smoking gun. That is pure 24-karat gold. What can we do with it?" I asked. "The video establishes clear, premeditated intent to defraud you of your share of a primary asset," he said. His voice clipped and fast, like he was dictating. "He's not just cheating, he's co-opting your financial future. The court will hate that. We don't act now by filing for divorce. That tips him off. We act by protecting the asset." "How does your husband sign documents you put in front of him?" The question sent a chill through me. All the time, he calls me the details person. "Excellent," Alex said. "I'm sending you a link. It will contain a quitclaim deed. It will also contain a motion for an ex parte temporary injunction, freezing any sale or transfer of the property. We will need to get your husband's signature on a separate set of documents, something he wants to sign." I thought, we have a small joint investment property, a cabin. He's been wanting to refinance it to pull cash out. He asked me to handle the paperwork before I left. "Perfect," Alex said. "We will bundle the new deed transfer paperwork inside the refinancing packet. You will have him sign it. You will have it notarized. He'll be signing the cabin refinance he wants, and in the process, he'll be signing his rights to the house over to you, pending the divorce settlement. When he signs, you will overnight the packet to me. Is that legal?" He's a 45-year-old financial advisor, Ms. Lawson. A court will assume he read what he signed. You are simply being more diligent. The plan was cold. It was brutal. It was beautiful. The video, Alec continued. We need it authenticated. We need to prove that timestamp is real and unaltered. I work at Northline Strategic Group, I said. Our IT department is first rate. After the call, I dialed my office. I got Bill, the head of IT, a man who owed me for approving his last 3 budget requests. Bill, hi, it's Alice Lawson. Alice, how's Denver? Good. Listen, I have a weird one. I'm reviewing a vendor's security compliance, and their camera logs look off. Can you walk me through how to pull a raw metadata log from a standard cloud-based system? I need to be able to verify the timestamp is accurate and hasn't been tampered with. It's for the audit. Easy, Bill said. He didn't question it. He spent 10 minutes walking me through a back-end data extraction process. By the time Riley woke up, I had a separate file, a raw data log, full of code, that proved the video from 12:04 p.m. on October 22nd was authentic. I had the document packet from Alec printing at the Hotel Business Center. My goal was set. Evan wanted to make an announcement. He wanted to be the one holding all the cards, presenting his new life as a done deal. He wanted to watch me break, but by the time he cleared his throat to speak, the game would already be over. The house would be mine. The assets would be frozen. His signature would be my weapon. I met Alec for a final 2-minute call before checking out. It's done, I told him. The packet is ready. Good, he said. Now, Alice, this is the most important part. You go home. You say nothing. You smile. You unpack. You let him believe he is driving this ship. The blow always lands harder when they think they're winning. I snapped the laptop shut. Let him think he's driving. I could do that. I'd been letting him think that for 17 years. I didn't have to look for her. Once you have a name, the internet does the rest. Sabrina Cole. The name had been spoken in our house before, but only in passing, insulated by the sterile context of his work. Evan had mentioned her. Maybe 4 or 5 months ago. It was one of those rare nights he was home for dinner, and he was complaining, which was his new form of conversation. Just took on a new client, he'd said, pushing his food around. A real tough case. Sabrina Cole, recently divorced. Husband cleaned her out. 3 kids. Total mess. Crestone is trying to help her get her finances sorted. At the time, I'd registered it with a vague, passing pity, a client, a mess, just another line item in his portfolio of other people's problems. But now, with the video file saved and my mission clear. Her name was a search query. Her social media was public. Of course it was. She was building a brand of resilient motherhood. The profile picture was her with 3 children, 2 boys, 1 girl, all under the age of 10, beaming in an apple orchard. Her bio was simple. Mom to 3 amazing humans, finding our way, choosing joy. Her feed was a meticulously curated story of struggle and hope. There were posts about the difficulty of finding a good school district. There were long captions about stability and the importance of a real home for her children. She wasn't a villain. She was a victim, a single mother just trying to make it, documenting her journey for a sympathetic audience. She was the star of her own uplifting movie. And then I saw him. He wasn't there, not really, not at first, but the digital crumbs were everywhere. And now I knew what to look for. A post from 2 months ago, a picture of her youngest son's hand holding an adult-sized French fry. My little guy loves his fry dates, she'd written, but my eyes were on the cuff of the shirt in the background, a specific shade of blue, with a particular stitching. It was Evan's, the one he wore on weekends, a post from 6 weeks ago. Her, smiling, holding a glass of wine on a patio, the caption, "Thankful for friends who help put together impossible furniture." In the corner of the frame, blurry, was the back of a man's arm, reaching for a glass. I knew that arm. I knew the watch that was usually on it. He must have taken it off. His ghost was everywhere, the shadow of his shoulder in a selfie at a park, the back of his head, watching her kids at a playground. He was the invisible man, the benefactor, the friend who was helping this brave single mother. He was always, meticulously, cut out of the frame. Then I remembered the bunk beds. It was about 3 months back. I was reviewing a joint account statement, one we kept for household overruns. There was a charge for $800 from Kids Space Village. "Evan," I had asked, holding the paper, "what's this from Kids Space Village?" He had been on his phone, barely listening. He'd glanced at it, and his response was so fast, so smooth. "Oh, that? It's for Mark's nephew. From the office, his family lost their apartment in that fire over in Rutland. Total nightmare. They've got nothing. I sent them some bunk beds for the kids. I didn't want to make a big deal of it." He'd looked at me, a perfect mask of humble charity, and I, like an idiot, had felt a surge of pride. "That was so kind of you, Evan." He had used our money to buy furniture for her children. He had laundered his affair through a story of fictional charity. I scrolled back through her feed. 3 months ago, there it was, a picture of her 2 boys, jumping on a brand new wooden bunk bed. The caption, "Someone is happy with their new setup, so incredibly grateful for the angels in our lives who make things possible." I was the angel. My money had made it possible. I remembered, too, a family Zoom call, a virtual check-in with Caleb and Riley, a rare moment we were all on screen. Evan had been in his home office. His phone, which he'd left on the desk, buzzed. The screen lit up. A text. "SC client." He'd reached over and swiped it away instantly. "Sorry, just work," he'd muttered. "SC, Sabrina Cole, a client." He wasn't even lying. He was just omitting the services being rendered. Looking at her profile, I felt a strange, cold clarity. Sabrina Cole was not a classic homewrecker. She wasn't a femme fatale in a red dress. She was, in a way, just like me. She was practical. She was a mother of 3 who had been, in her words, cleaned out. She needed a house, a big one, in a good school district, with a yard. She needed stability. It was the most American desire of all. She didn't want a torrid affair in cheap hotel rooms. She wanted a transfer of assets. She wanted a man with a good income and a 4-bedroom house. And Evan, with his new promotion and his desperate need to be a hero, was the perfect target. He wasn't just having sex. He was auditioning. He was promising to be the savior she wrote about in her captions. And what does a savior do? He provides a home. The only problem was, the home he promised was not his to give. It wasn't just a house. It was the house Caleb and Riley had grown up in. It was the wall in the pantry where I had marked their heights every year in pencil. A ladder of smudged lines. It was the oak tree in the backyard that Evan and I had planted when Riley was born. It was the guest bedroom where my mother had spent her last 3 months, where I had held her hand as she faded, the afternoon sun coming through that specific window. That was the rage that finally broke through the ice. It wasn't the sex. It wasn't even the lies. It was this. It was the casual, arrogant assumption that he could take that history, my history, our children's history, and trade it. That he could stand in my kitchen, the one I paid for, the one where I had taught my children to bake, and give it away. He was willing to erase 19 years. He was willing to paint over the pencil marks, tear out the pantry, and sell the oak tree, all to impress a woman who only knew my life from a 30-minute video tour. We flew back from Denver on a Wednesday. The sky was a clear, sharp blue. Riley was asleep, headphones on, and I stared out the window, tracking the grid lines of the suburbs as they gave way to the green, rolling hills of the East Coast. I was calm. The rage had cooled and hardened into something much more useful, a plan. Evan was waiting at baggage claim, a perfect picture of the husband in waiting. He was holding a welcome home sign he'd clearly had Riley draw years ago and repurposed, which was meant to be charming. He kissed me, a dry, papery kiss on the cheek, and hugged Riley tight. "How are my girls?" he boomed, grabbing our bags. "Did you conquer Denver?" "The campus was amazing, Dad," Riley said. "But the altitude is no joke." "And the conference?" he asked, turning to me, his eyes polite, empty. "Productive," I said. "Got a lot done." The drive home was a masterpiece of his performance. He asked all the right questions, played all the right songs. He was the enthusiastic, supportive, slightly goofy dad and husband. He was a complete stranger. When we walked into the house, Bruno was ecstatic, wagging his whole body. And the kitchen was immaculate. He'd cleaned, the counters, the ones I'd watched him stand at with Sabrina Cole, were wiped. The floors were mopped. The soapstone was oiled to a dark, glossy sheen. "Wow, Dad," Riley said, impressed. "What got into you?" Evan leaned against the counter he'd promised to a stranger, crossing his arms. He looked proud. "Oh, he said to me. "It was just looking a little cluttered. Thought I'd tidy up for when you got home." He had tidied up. He had erased the evidence. He had polished the scene of the crime. I set my purse down, right on the island. I ran my hand over the cool stone. "You did a beautiful job. Evan, thank you. It feels clearer in here." Later that night, after Riley had gone to bed, I found him in the living room, watching some financial news channel. I was in my pajamas, holding a cup of tea. "Evan," I started, keeping my voice casual. "I was thinking about that security app. I'm not sure I like the cloud plan we have." He looked up, distracted. Why it works fine. I was just looking at the settings. It doesn't save for very long, does it? It seems to delete clips after, 30 days? He froze. It was not a big movement. It was the lack of movement. For one solid, ticking second. He did not breathe. His eyes, fixed on me, lost their placid, end-of-day glaze. Then, he blinked, and the mask snapped back. He gave a short, dismissive laugh. 30 days. Who needs more than 30 days? It's just a security camera, Alice, not a family archive. If someone breaks in, you know it in an hour. You're overthinking it." "You're right," I said, taking a sip of tea. "Just a thought. You're right. I let him win. I let him believe I was overthinking. I let him believe the 30-day window had closed. I gave it 3 days. 3 days of being the perfect, post-trip wife. I did laundry. I restocked the fridge. On Saturday morning, I brought him coffee while he was reading on his tablet in the sunroom. "Hey," I said, sitting opposite him. "I was thinking about something you said a while ago." He lowered the tablet, wary. "What's that about the market in Willowford? How it's insane right now." I saw the shift. The wariness vanished, replaced by a glint of self-satisfaction. He was leaning forward before I even finished. "It is, Alice. It's peaking. We could make a killing." I know, I said, pretending to be hesitant. "And I've always loved this house, but with my new projects in Boston, and you're there all the time anyway, I was just thinking, maybe you're right. Maybe we should capitalize. Maybe a move, closer to Boston, would be smart." He was trying not to smile. He was failing. "Alice, I'm so glad you're finally seeing the bigger picture. This is exactly what I've been talking about. The timing is perfect. We could really upgrade. Find a place that's built for our future, not just our past." "Our future," I repeated, nodding. "Exactly." His confidence was so bright, so blinding. It was a wonder he could see me at all. He was high on it, and while he was, I went to work. That night, long after he was asleep, I was in my home office. I logged into our joint accounts, the ones he never checked. I traced the $800 Kid Space Village charge, and I found more. He was getting sloppy, high on his own success. He'd started using a joint savings account for his deposits. There it was, a transfer, 2 weeks ago, for $5,000. The recipient, Westbridge Estates Realty, LLC. I screenshotted it. I downloaded the statement. I saved it to the red USB drive. He wasn't just planning. He hadn't just looked at Westbridge Estates. He had put our money down. He had bought his way into his new life, using my signature on the savings account we'd opened for emergencies. The next morning, I made the calls. "Caleb. Hi, honey. How's work?" "Hey, Mom. It's fine. What's up?" I was just thinking. Thanksgiving is in a few weeks, and it's always so chaotic. I wanted to do a practice run, an early Thanksgiving, just us, this weekend, just the four of us, in this house. I want to have one more big quiet meal while the house is still full. A pause. Caleb, like me, was an analyst. He heard the subtext. Mom, is everything okay? Everything's fine. Honey, I just want to cook a big meal for my kids. Indulge me. Okay, he said, slowly. Yeah, I can drive up Saturday. I'll be there. Riley was easier. More turkey, sign me up. I presented it to Evan that evening. The kids are coming home this weekend, I said brightly. I'm going to do an early Thanksgiving, just us, before the holiday rush. His face lit up. It was genuine. This was it. This was the universe handing him the perfect, Norman Rockwell-esque stage for his grand announcement, all his chickens, in one coop. Alice, he said, and he actually took my hand. That is a perfect idea. Absolutely perfect. Let's make it special. The day arrived. I'd spent all morning cooking. The house smelled of sage and roasting turkey. I went to the attic and brought down my grandmother's china, the set with the thin gold rim. I polished the silver. I set the table for four, the lace tablecloth, the good wine glasses. I was building the most beautiful, elegant execution block. By 4 p.m., the turkey was resting. The kids were home, laughing in the living room. Evan was upstairs, changing into a crisp new shirt, no doubt practicing his speech. I stood in the dining room, adjusting a fork. My purse was on the sideboard. Inside it was a thick, gray 9x12 envelope. It contained the quitclaim deed, now notarized and filed, transferring his interest in the house to me. It contained the ex parte injunction, freezing our joint investment accounts. It contained the printed bank statement from Westbridge Estates, and tucked in a small pocket, a single red USB drive. I walked into the living room. The kids were watching football. Hey, I said, let's turn this off. Let's just talk. I picked up the remote. I went to the input menu. I scrolled down to Screen Share Cast. My phone buzzed in my pocket, recognizing the TV. Ready to connect living room TV, I left it on that menu. I muted the sound. I sat down. One button press. That's all it would take. Dinner's in 10 minutes, I called out, smiling. Evan, we're ready for you. We sat at the table. It was perfect. The turkey was carved, golden and glistening. The cranberry sauce, the real kind, was in my grandmother's crystal bowl. The candles were lit, their small flames reflecting in the good wine glasses. Caleb was home from New York, looking tired but handsome in a dark sweater. Riley was home from Denver, bright-eyed and talking a mile a minute about her classes. The scene was warm. It was loving. It was a lie. Evan sat at the head of the table, beaming. He loved this. He loved being the provider, the patriarch, presiding over his beautiful home and successful family. He was positively vibrating. I watched him. His leg was bouncing under the table, a rapid, nervous rhythm against the floor. He kept checking his phone, which he'd placed face down on the tablecloth, a breach of my rules. But I said nothing. He smoothed his new collar. He was waiting for his moment. Riley was telling a story about her economics professor. And he doesn't get that we can't all just buy the dip, you know? That's the real world, Riles, Caleb said, passing her the gravy. Theory's one thing. Well, speaking of the real world, Evan said, his voice a little too loud. I was pouring the wine, a deep red Cabernet. I set the bottle down, the final click of glass on wood. That was his cue. He stood up. The sound of his heavy dining chair scraping back on the hardwood floor was a violation. It was too loud. Riley stopped talking. Mid-sentence. Caleb looked up, his fork halfway to his mouth. I have an announcement to make, Evan said. He clasped his hands in front of him, just as I'd seen him do a dozen times at Crestone financial presentations. He was projecting. Evan, What is it? I asked, feigning concern. Sit down. Your food's getting cold. No, no, this is important, he said, smiling, though his eyes didn't leave his pre-selected spot on the far wall. I wanted to do this with all of you here. It's wonderful news. For all of us. Caleb's eyes flicked to me. He was cold. He was watching me watch his father. As you know, Evan continued, the market is just incredible, and I've been thinking about our future. This house has been wonderful. So many memories. But our family is changing. The kids are grown, and I found an opportunity for us to start a new, incredible chapter. He took a breath, puffing up his chest. I've put a deposit down on a much larger home in Westbridge Estates. It's a new build, incredible layout, and it's going to allow us to blend our families. It's a home where Sabrina and her 3 children can finally have the space they need, the stability they deserve, and so we will be selling this house. The silence that followed was absolute. It was so total, I could hear the candle flames sputter. Riley's face was a mask of pure confusion. Her brows were knitted together. Who is Sabrina? She whispered, looking at me. Mom, what is he talking about? Caleb just stared at his father. His face was granite. He put his fork down, very slowly, very precisely, on the rim of his plate. Evan finally looked at his children, but his gaze was hazy, like he was looking at a focus group. Sabrina, he said, his voice softening with a rehearsed sincerity, is someone I've been with for about 8 months. She's had a very hard time. She needs a real family, a real home, and I'm going to give that to her. He looked at me. Finally. And you, Alice, you'll be fine. You're strong, and this is a smart financial move. The kids are gone. It's for the best. 8 months, I said. My voice was even. Yes, he said, nodding, as if I had just agreed with him. Wonderful, I said. I smiled. That's just wonderful. Because, Evan, I have an announcement, too. I reached for my purse on the sideboard. I pulled out the thick, gray 9x12 envelope. I walked to his end of the table. He was still standing. I placed the envelope directly on his bread plate, covering the small, artisanal roll he hadn't touched. The edge of the envelope landed in a small smear of gravy. The air in the room became thin, electric. Evan stared at the envelope. His performance face dissolved, replaced by a pale, waxy confusion. His hands, which had been so confidently clasped, were now visibly shaking. What is this, Alice? He stammered. Paperwork. Now. We're having dinner. He tried to laugh it off. He picked up the envelope, but he didn't open it. Instead, just as I knew he would, he made to stuff it into the inner pocket of his suit jacket, which he was wearing to his own family dinner. We can look at this later, he said, patting his chest, dismissing me. Let's talk about the house. The new... No, I said. He stopped. I walked back to the living room entrance, where the remote for the television was sitting on a side table. I picked it up. You're right, I said, turning back to them. The 3 of them. Frozen. Let's not look at paperwork. Let's look at the house. This house. I aimed the remote. I pressed the center button. The large television screen over the fireplace, which had been black, flickered to life. It was already on the screen share input. My phone connected instantly, and there, suddenly, silently, was our kitchen, my kitchen, the one we were sitting 20 feet from, but it was last week. It was 12:04 p.m., and there was Evan. He was smiling. He was wearing his client polo. He was standing with a woman I did not know, a woman who was not me. He was gesturing. He was opening my drawers. He was pointing. He was leaning against my counter, relaxed, proprietary, happy. Riley made a small, choked sound. Evan's head snapped from the screen to me. His face was white. Alice, what is this? What are you doing? He was watching himself, in silent movie form, sell his life. The video played on. It showed him opening the narrow drawer, my mother's drawer, and waving his hand. "This space is all yours." There was no sound, but the words were so clear in my head, they were a shout. Evan fumbled for his own phone. "Stop this. Turn it off." But Caleb was faster. He stood up, knocking his own chair over. It crashed to the floor. His voice, when it came, was not a shout. It was a low, cracked growl that was more terrifying than any yell. "Dad," he said, his eyes locked on the screen, watching his father smile at Sabrina Cole. "You brought someone else into this house. You brought her into Mom's kitchen while she was gone." Evan's face was a terrible sight. The blood had drained from it, leaving a sallow, blotchy white. He looked at the television, where the silent video was still looping Sabrina touching my counters, Evan laughing and then back at me. He was breathing quickly, shallowly. He started, his voice a dry rasp. He was trying to find the salesman's script. I was just showing her the property, as a courtesy, because I'm going to sell." "Sell Mom's house?" Riley's voice cut through his. It was sharp, like broken glass. She had been the most confused, and now she was the first to be angry. "You're selling our house to raise other people's kids." "Riley, honey, you don't understand the financial implications," Evan stammered, raising a hand as if to calm a hostile boardroom. "I understand," I said. My voice was quiet. It cut through the room more effectively than any shout. All three of them looked at me. The video played on, a silent Greek chorus to my words. "I understand that I have gotten up at 5 a.m. every day for the past 15 years to catch a train to a job I don't always love, to make sure the mortgage on this house was paid. This specific house," I looked at Caleb, then at Riley. "I kept this house. I kept this kitchen. I kept your bedrooms exactly as you left them, so that no matter where you went in the world, no matter how badly you screwed up, you would always have a place to come home to." I turned my eyes back to Evan. His face was slack. "You brought another woman into this kitchen. You stood on this floor, and you promised her my mother's recipe drawer. You did that before you ever spoke a single word to me. That is the betrayal, Evan, not the sex, the appraisal. You spied on me," he finally roared, finding a different line of defense. He pointed a shaking finger at the television. This is an invasion of privacy. Alice, it's sick, you've been watching me." "The camera is for security, Dad." Caleb's voice was dead. He hadn't moved. His chair was still on the floor. "It's to protect the house from intruders. We didn't realize the intruder was you." The words hit Evan harder than a fist. He staggered back, physically recoiling from his son. "Caleb, don't talk to me like that." "What do you want him to say, Evan?" I asked. "Now, let's talk about that envelope, the one you put in your pocket." He looked down, confused, as if he'd forgotten it. "I'd like you to open it," I said. "But you don't really need to. I can give you the summary." I walked to the sideboard. Next to my purse, I was calm. I was a consultant delivering a final report. "Step 1, I said. "You can't sell this house. 2 days ago, I filed an ex parte injunction with the county, freezing any and all transfers of title on this property. It was granted this morning." You can't," he said, shaking his head. "It's in both our names. I'd have to sign." "You did," I said. "Last month, when you were so eager to refinance the cabin and pull cash out for Westbridge Estates. I assume you asked me to handle the paperwork. You were so busy, so important. You signed the entire packet. Evan, you signed the refinance application, and you signed the quitclaim deed, transferring the house into my sole name pending the divorce, right in front of the notary I hired." His face, which I thought could get no whiter, did. He ripped the gray envelope from his jacket pocket, his fingers tearing at the flap. He pulled out the papers. He saw the court stamp. He saw the deed. He saw his own gaudy signature at the bottom. "You set me up," he whispered. "No," I said. "You're a financial advisor who doesn't read his own contracts. I'm a strategist. I protected the asset you were actively trying to dissipate. Alec Whitmore, my lawyer, calls it gold. The video proved intent. Your signature sealed the deal." That was when Riley finally broke. It wasn't an angry shout. It was a deep, mournful sob that came from her stomach. She buried her face in her hands, her shoulders shaking. He was giving our rooms away," she cried, her voice muffled. He found 3 new kids." I went to her. I put my hands on her shoulders. She stood up and fell into me, and I held her, my arms wrapped tight around her, my cheek against her hair. I stared at Evan over her head. "I will not," I said, my voice low and fierce. "Let anyone, ever, move you from the house you grew up in. This is your home. It is not for sale." And then, in the thick, terrible silence, punctuated only by Riley's sobs, a new sound began, a sharp, electronic buzz. It was on the table, Evan's phone. He had left it, face down, on the lace tablecloth. It buzzed again, vibrating against the wood. Caleb looked down at it. Evan stared at it, paralyzed. It buzzed a third time, and the screen lit up, a notification, bright and blue in the candlelight. We could all read it. SC, client. Text message. How did it go? Did you tell them anxious to hear about the house? Kids are so excited. The humiliation was a physical thing, a new person at the table. It sat in Evan's chair. He had lost his family and his mistress in the same 30 seconds. He looked at the phone. He looked at Caleb, whose face was a mask of pure disgust. He looked at me, holding his crying daughter. He grabbed the phone. He couldn't stay. He couldn't hear the answer. He turned, not to us, but to the foyer, his back to the ruins of the meal. I have to take this," he muttered, already walking away. He left the dining room. He left the 3 of us standing there. Riley's sobs began to quiet. Caleb moved, slowly, to pick up his fallen chair. He set it upright. The table, which had been set for 4, had been redrawn. It was an island, and it was just the 3 of us. He didn't go far, just the foyer. He was a man who couldn't stand to be out of earshot, even in his own disgrace. He was still trying to manage both rooms. We heard him, his voice a desperate, urgent whisper. "Sabrina, no. No. Listen, it's just a bad moment." We sat in the dining room, a tableau of ruin. The turkey was congealing. Riley's sobs had stopped, replaced by hiccuping, angry breaths. Caleb stood by his chair, a sentinel of his mother's rage. A bad moment. We heard her voice, a tinny shriek, even without speakerphone. "What does that mean?" "Evan, my son's school transfers for Monday. I'm packed. My boxes are packed. Did you tell them or not?" "Listen, she found out," Evan stammered. She's being completely irrational. She transferred the house into her name. She locked it." A beat of pure, electronic silence. Then, the scream. "What? What do you mean, she transferred it? You said it was your house. You said it was your asset. You told me it was clear." Evan was babbling. It will be. It's just a legal trick. I'll sort it out. Alec, some lawyer." "A lawyer," she shrieked. "You told me she was going to sign. You said she was fine with it. You said—" I stood up. I wiped my hands on my napkin, though I hadn't eaten a thing. I walked out of the dining room and into the foyer. He was standing by the front door, his back to me, hunched over his phone like a goblin. He was sweating. "Sabrina, just give me a week," he was pleading. "I'll get the money. I'll sell the cabin." "A week?" She laughed, a hysterical, jagged sound. "I have 3 children. Evan, I'm not giving you a week. You lied to me." He saw my reflection in the dark glass of the front door. He spun around. his eyes wide with animal panic. "Alice, this is a private conversation." "It stopped being private," I said. "When you used my money to fund it." I held out my hand. "Give me the phone." "What? No. This is—" "Give it to me, Evan, or I will call her myself from the landline." He knew I would. His shoulders slumped. The fight was gone. He looked at the phone in his hand, this small black rectangle that held both his lives, and he handed it to me. I pressed the speakerphone button. The icon lit up, green and bright. I turned the volume all the way up. "And you're just a pathetic liar." Sabrina's voice suddenly filled the foyer, echoing into the dining room where Caleb and Riley sat, listening. "You have nothing. You have a crazy wife and no house." "Hello, Sabrina," I said. My voice was calm and clear. The line went dead quiet. Who is this?" she whispered. "This is Alice Lawson," I said. "I'm the one who's been paying the mortgage for the last 15 years. I'm the one whose joint savings account you've been draining." I don't know what you're talking about," she stammered, but the bravado was gone, replaced by a thin, reedy fear. "Don't you—" I said. I was a consultant, and I had my data points. "Let's see. Let's start with the charge from Kidspace Village on August 9th. For $814. Was that for the bunk beds? The ones you were so incredibly grateful for?" Silence. "Or," I continued, "what about the $700 for the Storyland theme park season passes? Evan said that was a client entertainment expense. Are your 3 children his clients?" "Sabrina, because that's fraud." He told me." "He told you what?" "That he was a big shot, that he had a house to give you. He has a corporate card and a commission check that's about to be garnished. Did you know he also paid for your son's pediatric consultation at Green Mountain Pediatrics on October 2nd, $320, from our emergencies account?" I heard a sharp intake of breath. It was from the dining room. It was Riley. "My God," Sabrina whispered. Her voice was hollow. She wasn't angry anymore. She was terrified. She was a single mother of 3 who had just realized her life raft was a sinking boat. "He told me it was his private account. He told me he was set. He said whatever you needed to hear," I finished. "He sold you a house he didn't own, with money he didn't have. He was liquidating my children's future to pay for yours. I can't." She was crying now. "I have 3 kids. I have boxes. I gave notice at my apartment. Oh my God. I'm homeless." "That is the consequence of your choices." "Sabrina," I said, and my voice was as cold as the soapstone counters. "You built your future on a lie. Now, you can deal with him, but you will not be dealing with me, or my assets, or my house, ever." I hung up. I turned to Evan. He was leaning against the wall, his face gray. He looked like a man who had been hollowed out. He had lost everything, from 2 different women, in the span of 5 minutes. I walked back into the dining room. Caleb was standing, his fists clenched. Riley was just staring at her plate. I went to my purse on the sideboard. I took out the red USB drive, the one with the video, the one with the metadata logs, the one with the bank statements from Westbridge Estates. I walked over to Caleb and held it out to him. "What's this?" he asked, his voice thick. "It's the file," I said. "It's all of it. The proof. In case your father decides to claim I'm irrational again, if he or his lawyer contact you, you give this to Alec Whitmore, no one else." Caleb looked at the small red drive. He took it. His hand closed around it. A fist. It was a transfer of power. Evan walked back into the room. He didn't look like a financial advisor. He didn't look like a regional vice president. He looked like what he was, a middle-aged man in a new shirt who had just been found out. He looked, for the first time, small. He slumped into his chair at the head of the table. He stared at the congealing turkey, the untouched wine. He understood, finally, that the house his bait, his closing argument, his entire sales pitch to Sabrina was gone. It was never his. He looked at me. his eyes empty. You took everything." "No," I said, pulling my chair back in. "I took back what was mine. You were going to sell this house, Evan. You were going to sell the one thing that keeps these kids anchored here. You were going to sell their childhoods for a new model." I picked up my wine glass. "You just miscalculated. You thought you were the only strategist in the family. I just planned better." Evan looked at his children, his face desperate, trying to find an ally. He was a salesman, and he'd just lost the main clients. He was now trying to salvage the relationship with the junior partners. "Caleb Riley," he pleaded, his voice soft, intimate. "Listen to me. Not her. This is complex. Let's go into the study. Let's talk. Just us. Your mother she's upset. She's not seeing this clearly." Caleb didn't even look at him. He looked at me, then back at his father. "No, Dad. We're staying right here." Riley, her eyes red but her voice suddenly hard, chimed in. "This is Mom's house. We're staying with Mom." The rejection from his own children, so clean, so final, seemed to break something in him. The pleading vanished, the salesman was gone, and the cornered animal was all that was left. His face darkened. "Fine," he spat, his eyes locking on me. "You want to do this? You want to play this way? I'll see you in court. Alice, you think you can steal my house? You think you can forge my name on some trick document? I will sue you. I will sue you for everything. I'll take this house back, and I'll see you on the street." He was loud. He was trying to be the man at the head of the table again. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't have to. "You can't sue, Evan. You've already lost. As I told you, I have a lawyer, a very good one. The court will see the video, the text messages, and the bank statements for Westbridge Estates. They will see your clear to premeditated plan to dissipate, that's the legal term, our primary marital asset. You were treading marital funds for a non-marital purpose. I was simply protecting the asset for the non-violating party. That's me. That's not a thing," he yelled. "It is, actually, Dad." Caleb's voice was quiet, but it was like a judge's gavel. Evan's head snapped toward his son. "I'm an economics major, Dad, not a law student, but I know what a commingled fund is. You took money from a joint savings account, money that was half Mom's, and you spent it on her kids, the bunk beds, the theme park tickets, the $5,000 deposit for Westbridge. You did that without Mom's consent. That's the legal issue. That's the fraud. Mom didn't steal the house. She just secured it before you could give it away." Evan stared at his son, this boy he had taught to throw a baseball, who was now calmly, methodically, dismantling him. He fell back on the oldest, most pathetic line in the book. He looked at all of us, his arms spread wide, a martyr on a cross of his own making. I just wanted to be happy. Don't I deserve to be happy, too?" "Yes," Riley said, her voice sharp. She had stopped crying. She was just angry. "You do, Dad. You deserve to be happy, but you don't get to buy your new happiness with our money. You don't get to sell our home to pay for it. You've all," he stammered, looking from face to face. "She's turned you against me." "No, Evan," I said. "You did. Now, the envelope, you didn't finish opening it." He looked at the torn gray envelope on his plate, now stained with gravy and cranberry sauce. I've seen enough." "No," I said. "You haven't. You didn't look at it later. So you'll look at it now. Open it. All the way." His hands were shaking so badly he could barely get the papers out. He fumbled, and they splayed across the table, over the ruins of the meal. He saw the injunction. He saw the notarized quitclaim deed. But then he saw the other documents I had included. "What?" he whispered, picking up a sheaf of papers. It was a fully prepared divorce petition, citing dissipation of assets and adultery. All it needed was his signature. or a process server. He dropped it, and under it, one more sheet. It was a color printout, a collage of still frames I had made. Evan and Sabrina in the kitchen, Evan smiling, Sabrina touching the counter, the zoomed-in text message. "Our house is beautiful, isn't it?" He was looking at his entire betrayal, printed, itemized, and served to him on his grandmother's china, and as he stared, his whole body trembling with a mixture of rage and shock, his phone, which sat next to his plate, lit up again, and again, and again. He didn't move. We all watched. A text message, then another, then a picture. The screen was bright. We could all see the preview. It was from SC Client. It was a picture of a packed suitcase. Another message. A picture of 3 small, confused-looking children in coats, standing in a hallway piled with boxes. Then a final, long string of text messages that pushed all the others up the screen. We could only read the last one. "Don't you ever contact me or my children again. I'm calling a lawyer." He had been fired from his new life and his old one at the exact same moment. The mistress he had sacrificed his family for had just, in a single text, abandoned him, because the asset he'd promised her was no longer on the table. She was, as I had surmised, a practical woman. That was what finally broke him. The loss of control was total. He looked at the phone. He looked at the printed photos. He looked at me. "You," he hissed. He stood up, and this time he swept his arm across the table, wine glasses, the crystal bowl of cranberry sauce, his entire plate, all of it crashed to the floor in a spray of red wine and broken glass. "You did this," he screamed, pointing at me, his face purple. "You ruined 17 years. 17 years. You ruined this family. You couldn't just let me be happy. You had to spy. You're a vindictive, jealous." He was panting, searching for a word to hurt me. I stood up, too. But I was calm. I did not yell. I let the echo of his scream fade in the room, amid the smell of wine and turkey. "I'm not the one who ruined it, Evan," I said, my voice clear and cold. "I'm the one who kept it. I'm the one who paid for it, and the one who protected it. You're the one who broke it." I pointed, not at him, but through the doorway, toward the kitchen. "You broke it right in there, in that kitchen, on my camera." He stood there, panting, amid the wreckage of the table. The smell of red wine and gravy was sharp in the air, mixing with the sage of the cooling turkey. His chest was heaving. He looked at the floor, at the shattered glass of my grandmother's wine goblets, and he seemed to finally understand that it was over, but I wasn't finished. "One more thing," I said, my voice cutting through the heavy silence. He looked at me, his eyes red and exhausted. "What now? Alice, what more do you want?" "Your phone," I said, pointing to it on the floor where he'd dropped it in his rage. "Pick it up. You're going to call Sabrina back." "What? No, it's over. You are going to call her," I said, stepping over the puddle of wine. "And you are going to tell her the truth. You will tell her that you lied. You will tell her you never owned this house, that you had no right to offer it, and that you used our joint funds to deceive her. You will tell her, in no uncertain terms, that you have no assets to offer." "And why would I do that?" he whispered, his voice hoarse. "Because if you don't," I said, leaning in, "that red USB drive, the one Caleb is holding, has a second copy, and that copy will be messengered to the head of human resources at Creststone Financial on Monday morning, at 9 a.m. sharp. I wonder what they'll think of a regional vice president who commits financial fraud against his own family. I wonder what their compliance department will say about you using client accounts because SC Client is what she was in your phone. Wasn't it for a sexual and financial relationship? You'll be fired by noon. Evan. And you'll have no house, no job, and no severance. Now, call her." It was the last move. The checkmate. He was a man with no options, and he knew it. He slowly bent down, his knees cracking, and picked up his phone. The screen was cracked. He fumbled with it. his shaking thumb finally finding her contact. He pressed, "Call." He put it on speaker, his eyes never leaving mine. It rang once, twice. We all waited. She answered. Her voice was not hysterical anymore. It was dead. "What?" she said. It wasn't a question. "Sabrina," Evan began, his voice breaking. I have to tell you." "Don't," she cut him off. Her voice was like ice. "Don't you say another word. I'm at a gas station. I'm looking at my 3 crying children in a U-Haul I can't afford. You don't have a house. You don't have any money. You don't even have a voice. You're a ghost. Don't you ever follow me. Don't you ever say my name again." The line clicked. She was gone. Evan stared at the phone. He had been erased. Caleb turned his head away. He couldn't look at his father anymore. He wasn't looking at a parent. He was looking at a failed, empty stranger. The disappointment was absolute. Riley, who had been watching, slid her chair closer to mine. She put her hand on my arm. The image was undeniable, the two of us. A single, unbroken unit. The family that was real, versus the imaginary one that had just imploded over speakerphone. Evan finally let the phone clatter to the table. He looked at me, the last shred of his bluster gone. "So that's it," he whispered. "You're taking everything. You're just taking it all. Alice." "No," I said. I went back to the sideboard and picked up the last document from the gray envelope. It was a simple, printed spreadsheet. I slid it across the table to him, over the water rings and breadcrumbs. "I'm not taking everything. I'm just taking back my share, the share you were showing off to other people." He looked down. It was the asset division schedule Alec Whitmore had prepared. What is this?" "That," I said, "is the rest of your life. That's our investment portfolio, our savings, our assets. It's split, 50-50, down the middle. You'll still have your commission. You'll still have your pension. You'll get your half of the cabin. You'll have plenty to start over. You just won't have this. You won't have the house as bait." He slumped. He sat back in his chair. A man deflated, he stared past me, through the dining room, into the kitchen, my kitchen, the one he had stood in just days before, planning its demolition, the room where he had imagined his new life with his 3 new children. He was looking at the ghost of the future he had tried to build, and he was sitting in the room where it had all been torn down. The light from the chandelier was on him, but he was all shadows. I turned away from him. I walked over to the mess he had made, the broken glass, the spilled wine. "Caleb, Riley," I said, my voice perfectly normal. "Let's get a new bottle of wine. Let's finish our dinner. I cooked all day. I'm not letting it go to waste." Riley looked at me, and a small, watery smile broke through. "Okay, Mom," Caleb nodded, his shoulders relaxing. I went to the kitchen to get the dustpan. Evan was still sitting there, a guest who had overstayed his welcome. Finally, he stood up. The movement was slow, the scrape of the chair loud and final. He walked, not to me, not to his children, but toward the front door. He was just leaving. He had his hand on the doorknob when I spoke. "Evan," he stopped, his back to me. My voice was not high. It was not angry. It was just a statement of fact. "The garage door opener, the key to the front door, and the joint bank card, leave them on the kitchen counter." He didn't turn. He didn't argue. He reached into his pocket. His hand came out, and I heard the metallic clink as he dropped his keys onto the soapstone counter. Another clack as the plastic card hit the stone. Then he opened the front door, and he was gone. The door clicked shut. The house was quiet. I stood there for a moment, just breathing in the silence. I heard Riley open the fridge, the clink of a new bottle. I heard Caleb sweeping up the glass. I looked at the kitchen. The red light of the security camera was still on, glowing faintly in the corner. It was still recording. It had seen it all, but this time, it was just watching me and my children. As we sat back down at the table, Riley poured 3 glasses of wine, I went and got the pumpkin pie. We ate, in silence, in the candlelight, surrounded by the wreckage. We were fine. This time, I didn't just check the camera. I let the camera certify who this house belongs to. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to know where in the world you are listening from. So please drop a comment below and share your thoughts. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe to Zoe Revenge Stories, like this video, and hit that hype button so more people can hear this story.